Just then, I noticed a familiar vehicle enter the parking lot, Peyton's Lexus. She slowed down immediately when she saw us, her face visibly confused behind the windshield. She didn't pull up close. Instead, she stayed frozen in her seat. Her eyes locked on the scene in front of her, trying to make sense of it. Octavia noticed too. Her tone shifted, her voice turning more serious. "Mom's here," she whispered. "After yesterday?" I asked quietly. "It's okay," I told her. "Go to her. I just wanted to show you my new ride." She gave me a tight smile, then leaned in for a quick hug. "I'll call you tonight," she promised before jogging off toward her mother's car. I stayed by the Jaguar for another moment, watching as Peyton stepped out of her Lexus. She looked completely stunned, her hand gripped the car door like she needed it to stay upright. From even this distance, I could see the color drain from her face. She didn't say a word. Her eyes were locked on me and the Jaguar, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. I slid back behind the wheel slowly, turned the key, and let the engine purr to life. Then I pulled out of the parking lot, deliberately slow, giving her plenty of time to see me behind the wheel. Our eyes met for a brief moment. Hers were wide with shock, disbelief, and something else. Maybe fear. The kind of fear that creeps in when everything you believed about someone turns out to be wrong. I gave her a small nod, just enough to acknowledge her, and then I drove off, feeling something inside me shift. It was a petty move, I knew that. A man my age should be above this kind of thing, but still. In that moment, it felt incredibly good. I hadn't even been home 10 minutes when my phone began to ring. I glanced at the screen, Peyton's name. A part of me considered ignoring it. Let her sit with her questions a little longer. But I knew she wouldn't give up, and besides, this talk had to happen sooner or later. I answered and put the call on speaker. "Hello, what was that?" Peyton's voice came through, high and tight, almost hysterical. "Where did you get that car?" "I bought it today," I said calmly. Decided it was time for something new. "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "That's a Jaguar. Cars like that cost a fortune. Where did you get that kind of money?" "I told you I'm working on a new project." "No project pays that much, Dad," she barked. "Tell me the truth. Did you get involved in something shady? Is this some rental just to make a point?" I let out a deep sigh. There she was again, jumping to conclusions, assuming the worst of me like she always did. "Peyton, I don't owe you a financial report," I said, my tone sharp but measured. "Especially not after the way you treated me yesterday." "I overreacted," she said, her voice suddenly softening. "We all did. It was a stressful day. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? We can talk this over, like a family." I laughed, more bitter than amused. Yesterday I was the broke old man you didn't want around your daughter, and today I'm family again? Just because of a fancy car? Daddy, please. Her voice trembled now, and I could hear the pleading in it. "I just need to understand what's going on. You look different. This whole thing, it's not like you." "Maybe," I said quietly. "Maybe you just don't know me as well as you think you do." There was a silence on the line, just for a second, before she asked, "Are you coming to dinner?" "I'm sorry, Peyton," I said firmly. "I have other plans." "What plans?" she asked, her voice sharper now, demanding again. "Dad, I have a right to know what you've gotten yourself into." "No," I replied, my tone now like steel. "You don't. You made it very clear I'm not part of your family. So now you get to live with that decision." I ended the call without another word. I stared at the phone as it rang again, but I didn't answer. Instead, I let it buzz itself out and focused on the road ahead. The Jaguar moved like a dream, smooth and quiet, and for the first time in many years, I felt like I was the one steering not just the car, but my life, But when I turned into my driveway, I immediately noticed the Lexus already there. Peyton was sitting on the steps outside my house, pale and clearly upset. She stood up as soon as she saw me pull in. Her eyes were fixed on the car, and then on me, full of disbelief. "Daddy, we need to talk," she said, coming closer. "I want an explanation. Where did you get the money for this car? What was the project? Why didn't you say anything?" I looked at Peyton standing in front of my new Jaguar with a look of shock and disbelief on my face. Her confidence and disdain from yesterday had been replaced by a confusion that she hid poorly. "Daddy, please let's talk," she repeated, taking a step toward me. "You just want to understand what's going on." I calmly locked the car and headed toward the driveway as if I did notice her agitated state. "Cornelius Taft," her voice became harsh. "I'm your daughter, and I have a right to know where you suddenly got the money for a luxury sports car." I stopped and slowly turned to her. "Yesterday I was a beggar who you forbade to see your own granddaughter. And today you suddenly remembered that I'm your father." Her cheeks turned slightly red. "Yesterday I overreacted. You know my temper. I inherited it from you. By the way, I didn't remember ever pouring coffee on someone and calling them derogatory nicknames," I said dryly. Peyton lowered her eyes, suddenly looking like a little girl who knew what she'd done was wrong. It reminded me of when she was still my little girl, not the cold and calculating woman she'd become. "I apologize for my behavior," she said quietly. "It was unforgivable. But you have to understand that Ashton and I are just concerned about Octavia and her future, and frankly, about you two. You've always lived so modest. And now you show up in a Jaguar that's worth at least $80,000. It's scary." "Dad, why should my financial being scare you?" I asked, crossing my arms across my chest. "Isn't that what you've always wanted? For me to be successful by your standards? I want to know that this success is real and legitimate." Her last word came out, legitimate. Her last word sounded almost like an accusation. I laughed, unable to contain myself. "Do you really think that a man who has dedicated his life to studying history and preserving cultural heritage, would suddenly do something illegal? At 64, I decided to become a criminal mastermind." Peyton was even more embarrassed. "No, of course not. But you have to admit, it's kind of weird. All your life you've barely made ends meet, refused my financial help out off-ride, and now all of a sudden you're driving around in a car that costs as much as a small house." I sighed. There was some truth to what she said. My sudden extravagant purchase did seem unusual for a man of my stature. "Peyton, I got a well-paid contract. That's all you need to know. I can't divulge the details because of a confidentiality agreement. But what kind of contract? With whom? How much?" She wouldn't give up. "Dad, I just want to make sure you aren't being lied to or used." "I'm not being cheated or taken advantage of," I said firmly. "And I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself no matter what you think of me." At that moment, Beatrice came out of the driveway carrying a garbage bag. When she saw us, she slowed down, assessing the situation. "Hello." She nodded to Peyton. "Beautiful day, isn't it? Hello, Miss Winslow." Ton smiled strained. "Yes, it's a beautiful day. Did your father show you his new automobile?" Beatrice smiled slightly, clearly enjoying the moment. "It's an amazing car, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," Peyton agreed. "I was just asking where it came from." "Oh, your father is a very important person now." Beatrice winked at me. "He's working on a secret project of national importance, but I can't tell you anything else. It's a state secret, you understand?" I could hardly contain a smile as I watched Peyton's eyebrows go up. "A state secret?" she repeated cradily. "Dad, what is she talking about?" "Beatrice likes to be dramatic. I shrugged. "But yes, my project." does require complete confidentiality. And that's the end of the subject. Beatrice, having thrown out the trash, came back to us. Peyton, would you like to come in for a cup of tea? I was just baking your father's blueberry pie. He said you loved it when you were a kid. My daughter looked confused by this sudden change of subject, but nodded. Yes, thank you. It would be a pleasure. The three of us went up to my apartment where Shakespeare met us, meowing demandingly and wrapping himself around my legs. Hi, handsome. I leaned down to open him. Sorry, I'm late. You have a cat? Peyton was surprised. Since when? 5 years now, I answered as I watched her look around the apartment. I could see that she was noting new details. Theater and TV on the wall, the collection of rare books in the closet, the anti-clock on the mantelpiece. I'd had all of these things before, but she'd never noticed because she rarely visited my home. Sit down. I'll get the tea and cake, Beatrice said, heading into the kitchen. I'll help, I offered, following her in the kitchen. Beatrice quietly, Are you sure you want her here after everything that's happened? She's my daughter. I answered just as quietly. Then maybe this is a chance to clear things up a bit. Besides, I can keep in touch with Octavia through her. Beatrice nodded understandingly. Just be careful. Her sudden interest in your life came only after she saw you in an expensive car. I knew she was right, but part of me still hoped there was something left in Peyton of the loving girl I'd once known. When we returned to the living room with tea and cake, Peyton was sitting on the couch looking at the picture of Octavia on the coffee table. She looks so much like you, Town remarked as I set the tray down. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. And the same passion for history, I added, pouring the tea. Peyton sighed. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Dad, I realized that Ashton and I were a little harsh yesterday. Of course, we have no right to forbid you from seeing Octavia. And if she's real interested in history, perhaps that's not such a bad thing. What a sudden change of heart, I remarked, cutting off a piece of pie. Something tells me it's not just about realizing your mistakes. Peyton blushed. You always saw right through me. She sipped her tea. Okay, I admit it. Your new financial situation has made Ashton and I reevaluate some things. Perhaps we were wrong to think that a career as a historian necessarily leads to poverty. Or maybe you thought that a rich grandfather historian was better than a poor grandfather historian. Beatrice interjected, not hiding her sarcasm. Peyton gave her an irritated glance but remained silent. Anyway, she continued, turning to me. Ashton and I would like to invite you to dinner this Saturday to talk things over and maybe start over. Octavia would be very pleased. I put down my fork and looked at my daughter carefully. Peyton, I appreciate your invitation, but let's be honest with each other. All you and Ashton see in me's money. Yesterday I was a nobody. Today I'm suddenly a welcome guest just because I bought an expensive car. That's not true, she objected. But her eyes betrayed the truth. It is. I shook my head. And I don't want that kind of relationship. Not with you, not with Ashton. I want to see Octavia, but not at the cost of hypocrisy. So you're saying no? Her voice has grown cold. Dinner? Yes, but I would like to keep in touch with Octavia. Perhaps we could set up some sort of schedule to meet without having to pretend we're a happy family. Peyton finished her tea insolence and set her cup down. I'll talk to Ashton, she said finally, but I can't promise he'll agree, especially after you rejected our offer of reconciliation. We both know it wasn't a sincere offer, I replied calmly. And tell Ashton that I'm not going to fund his investments or pay for your European vacations, if that's what he expects from our reconciliation. Peyton flared up, confirming my suspicions. You were always too perceptive, she stood up. Thanks for the tea, but I have to go. I'll be in touch with you about Octavia. After she left, Beatrice looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. You were cruel to her. She's been cruel to me for years, I replied, putting away the dishes. And I don't want to start a fake relationship based only on her sudden interest in my money. And rightly so, Beatrice nodded. But still, she's your daughter, and maybe somewhere deep down inside, she still loves you. Perhaps, I agreed without much conviction. The next few days passed in tense anticipation. I returned to my work at the Institute, fully immersed in researching Hamilton's collection. Analyzing documents and writing detailed reports helped take my mind off family problems. When I returned home on Wednesday evening, a message from Octavia was waiting for me. Grandpa, my parents let me see you on weekends. Can he come over on Saturday? P.S. They don't know I'm writing to you now. I smiled, imagining her secretly sending me this message, probably hidden in her room. I replied, Of course, sweetie. I'll be waiting for you any time you want. Why don't we go to the museum? Her answer came almost instantly. Yes, to the Historical Museum. I read there's a new exhibit about the Constitutional Convention. I was touched by her enthusiasm. Despite her parents' best efforts to turn her away from history, her interest only grew. Saturday morning, I received a strange phone call from Ashton. His voice sounded unnaturally friendly. Cornelius, good morning. I hope I didn't wake you up. No, I've been up for a while, I answered cautiously, wondering what he wanted. Good. Listen about Octavia. Peyton and I have been thinking about it, and we think you're right. We can't keep you two from seeing each other. She can spend the day with you, but please have her home by 7:00 p.m. Thank you. Ashton, I said, surprised at his sudden concession. I appreciate your decision, Yeah, well, family's family, right? He laughed awkwardly. By the way, I heard you bought a new car. A Jaguar, I think. Impressive. Oh, that's what it is. I could see why he was suddenly so cooperative. Yes, I decided. To treat myself, I say neutrally. That's great. You deserve nice things, Cornelius. By the way, I was thinking maybe we could have lunch together sometime, just you and me. There are some investment opportunities I'd like to talk to you about. I could barely contain my laughter. Did he really think I'd believe his sudden interest in talking to me? Very tempting, Ashton. But I'm afraid my schedule is too tight right now. Work takes up most of my time. Yes, of course, I understand. His disappointment was almost palpable. Maybe some other time. Anyway, Octavia will be ready by 10 o'clock in the morning. Will you pick her up? Yes, I'll be at your place at 10 o'clock. As I hung up the phone, I shook my head, surprised at how predictable Peyton and Ashton had been. As soon as they saw the outward signs of wealth, their attitude toward me had changed completely. I was no longer a useless old man living in the past, but a potential source of financial gain. At exactly 10 o'clock, I drove up to their house in my new Jaguar. Octavia was already waiting on the porch, dressed in jeans and a sweater with a small backpack over her shoulders. Standing beside her were Peyton and Ashton, both with strange smiles. Grandpa, Octavia rushed over to me as soon as I got out of the car. I'm so happy to see you. I hugged her, feeling my heart warm at her sincere affection. It's good to see you too, sweetie. Ton and Ashton followed, their eyes fixed on my car. Impressive car, Dad, Ton said, running her hand over the smooth surface of the hood. Must have cost a fortune. A good investment, I replied evasively. Ready, Octavia? We're in for an exciting day. More than exciting, she smiled, then turned to her parents. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. I'll see you tonight. Wait a minute. Ashton put his hand on her shoulder, stopping her. Cornelius, maybe we could all have dinner together tonight at that new restaurant downtown. I hear they have great food there. I noticed. Octavia rolled her eyes, clearly realizing what was going on. Unfortunately, I already have plans for tonight, I replied. Perhaps some other time. What plans? Tan asked with ill-concealed curiosity. A work meeting? I opened the car door for Octavia. Don't worry, I'll have her home by 7 as agreed. We drove off, leaving them standing in the driveway with disappointed faces. They're so obvious. Octavia snorted as we pulled away. A week ago, Dad said you were a bad influence on me, and now all of a sudden, he wants to take you out to dinner at an expensive restaurant. People change their minds, I say diplomatically. Yeah, especially when they see an expensive car, she shook her head. He heard them discussing you last night. Dad said you must have gotten a huge inheritance or won the lottery. And Mom thinks you're working on some secret government project. She even Googled your name trying to find information. I couldn't help but smile, imagining their theories. And what did she find? Nothing new. Just old articles about the Jefferson letter scandal. Octavia turned to me. Grandpa, you really can't tell me what you're working on, not even to me. I threw a quick glance at her. Her face expressed genuine interest without a shadow of the self-serving motives I'd seen in her parents. It's really a confidential project, Octavia, but I can tell you that it involves very important historical documents that could change our understanding of early American history. Her eyes lit up. Documents from the founding period, the correspondency, the founding fathers, something like that. I smiled at her insight. But I can't say any more than that, at least not yet. I understand, she nodded gravely. Secrecy is important in a case like this. I won't tell anyone, not even my parents, especially me. Parents, we spent the day at the History Museum where Octavia showered amazing knowledge and intuition for her age. She asked the guide such deep questions that at one point he asked her if she was preparing to enter the history department. Yes, she answered without hesitation. I want to become a historian specializing in early American history. I was touched by her confidence and determination. At 14, she already knew what she wanted out of life and was not afraid to go against her parents' wishes. After the museum, we had lunch at a small cafe where we continued to discuss the exhibition and her school projects. You know, I've destined to write a research paper on the role of women in shaping the early U.S. financial system, she said, sipping her milkshake. Everyone writes about the military and politicians, but no one pays attention to how wives and daughters influence the decisions of their husbands and fathers. That's a brilliant idea. I was genuinely impressed. Many historians ignore this aspect. If you want, I can recommend some sources. Yes, please. She pulled out a notebook, ready to take notes. And grandfather, thank you for supporting me at home. I can't talk about his story without causing annoyance. Your parents are just worried about your future, I said, even though I didn't really believe those words myself. They want you to be successful. But what is success? She put the notebook aside. For them, it's just money and status. But I think real success is doing what you love and doing something meaningful like you. I was touched by her words. You know, Octavia, I wasn't always so sure of my choices, especially after the Jeffersonian letter scandal. There were times when I wondered if I should have gone against tide. But you were right. Her eyes sparkled. And everyone knows that now, don't they? Not everyone, but some important people do. I smiled. And it's a reminder that sometimes you have to wait a long time for the truth to prevail. After lunch, we decided to take a walk in the park. It was a beautiful day, warm for fall with bright sunshine and a light breeze rustling the leaves that were beginning to turn yellow. Grandfather Octavia stopped suddenly at the pond where the ducks were swimming. I wanted to ask, are you happy in general in your life? Her question caught me off guard. I hesitated, looking at the calm surface of the water. Yes, I think I'm happy, Iffinally answered. I've had an interesting life full of ups and downs. I did what I loved, even when it washered. I have true friends like Beatrice, and I have you, my wonderful grandart. So yes, I am happy. Even though Mom and Dad, shuffled awkwardly. Parent-child relationships can be complicated sometimes, I said softly. Your mom wasn't always like that. When she was little, we were very close. She loved it when I told her stories about ancient civilizations and great historical figures. Did she? Octavia looked surprised. She never talked about it. A lot changed after the scandal and mid-divorce from your grandmother, I sighed. Peyton was a teenager then, and it washered for her. She chose her mother's side, and as time went on, our relationship became more and more strained. And now she's suddenly interested in you again because you bought an expensive car, Octavia said with an uncharacteristic cynicism for her age. Life is complicated, Octavia, and people are complicated too. Even your parents, they're not perfect. But they love you and want the best for you, even if their idea of best is different from yours. She nodded thoughtfully, tossing breadcrumbs to the ducks. You know what's weird? She said after a pause. They always told me that money wasn't important, that it was more important to be a good person. But all they talk about is status, career, expensive things. And now all of a sudden they've decided that you're a fit grandfather again just because you have money. People often contradict themselves. I put my hand on her shoulder. It's important that you decide for yourself what values are the most important for you. I've already decided, she smiled at me. I want to be like you. I want to follow my passion, even if it's not easy. The months flew by. I was fully immersed in the Hamilton collection, which was even more important than I'd originally anticipated. Every day brought new discoveries, unknown. Details of the founding of the U.S. financial system, personal reflections of the founding fathers on the future of the nation, secret agreements between political figures of the time. Adelaide Pierce became not just a colleague, but a trusted friend. Her in-depth knowledge of historical documents and preservation helped me move through my work faster than I expected. Cornelius, you've done an incredible job, she said one evening. We went over my reports together. The director is thrilled. No one expected the documents to be so historically significant. Thank you, but it's not just me, I replied, leaning back in my chair. My back was aching after hours spent working on the microscope. Without your support and help, I wouldn't have gotten through this so quickly. She smiled, gathering the papers into a folder. I have news for you. The director wants to meet with you tomorrow. I think it will be about renewing your contract. I nodded, thought of everything inside me clenched with excitement. Over the months, I'd gotten used to my new life. Interesting work, decent pay, respect from my colleagues. The thought that all this could continue filled me with a hope and enthusiasm I hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, I met with the director of the Institute, Dr. William Harrison, a tall, gay-haired man with shrewd eyes and impeccable manners. Mr. Taft, he shook my hand firmly. At last, we meet in person. I've heard a lot about your brilliant work. From Miss Pierce, thank you, Dr. Harrison. I sat down in the offered chair. It was an honor to work with such an outstanding collection, and you've met all our expectations. He opened the folder in front of him. Your reports on the authenticity of the documents, their historical context, and significance are excellent. Thanks to you, we now know that this collection will change the way historians think about the early period of the Republic. I nodded modestly, waiting for him to continue. In fact, that's why I invited you here today. He motioned a document toward me. The Institute would like to offer you a permanent position as a senior expert on historical documents. The contract is for 5 years with the possibility of extension. I took the document, running my eyes over the terms. The salary was more than generous, even more than I was getting for my current project, i.e. I don't know what to say, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. It's honor. It's our honor, Mr. Taft. The director smiled. People with your knowledge, experience, and most importantly, intuition are rare. The Institute would be happy to have you on its permanent team. I signed the contract without hesitation. 20 years of professional exile were over. I was once again recognized and in demand in my field. On my way home, I stopped by the bank where I met with my financial advisor. Over the past few months, I had accumulated a substantial amount of money in my account. I had always lived modestly, and my new salary allowed me to put most of it away. Mr. Taft, with that kind of income, you might want to think about buying a house, the advisor said as he looked over my accounts. Or perhaps building an investment portfolio. I have other plans, I replied. I'd like to set up an educational trust for my granddaughter to provide for her future college education. The counselor nodded, making notes. That's a wise decision. We can set up conditions under which the funds will be available for tuition. Only, are there any special requirements? I thought for a moment. Yes, I want her to have access to the trust only after her 18th birthday and only if she enrolls in college. And the choice of major should be entirely her own decision without outside pressure. It can be done legally. The counselor wrote down my wishes. Would her parents have access to these funds? Absolutely not, I answered firmly. Only my granddaughter should manage this money and only for her education. We completed the necessary paperwork and I left the bank with a sense of accomplishment. Octavia will get to follow her dreams regardless of what her parents think about it. When I returned home, I found Beatrice tending to my cat. Shakespeare misled me, she said when I walked in. He and I were philosophizing about the mortality of existence. I smiled as he took off my coat. And what conclusions did you come to? That life is short, but a good night's sleep and good food are eternal values, she winked. How was your meeting with the director? I told her about the new contract and she was genuinely happy for me. I always knew justice would prevail, she sighed, hugging me. You deserve this recognition, Cornelius, more than any O'Neill's. Thank you. I was touched by her support. You know, I've also set up an educational trust for Octavia so she can study history if she wants to, regardless of what her parents think. A smart move. Beatrice approved. What about you? Maybe it's time to consider a more comfortable place to live. Don't get me wrong, your apartment is charming, but with your new options, I wondered. I've always loved my modest apartment, but lately, I've really started to feel the need for more space, for books, for work, for life. You're right, I finally said. I think it's time for a change. Over the next few weeks, I scoured real estate listings until I found the perfect one. A small but elegant house in the historic district of the city. It was built in the 19th century and retained many of the original features. High ceilings, wood floors, marble fireplaces. The two-story building with its spacious library and sun room seemed made for me. The transaction went quickly and soon I owned my own home for the first time in my life. The move took a few days, but with the help of Beatrice and a few colleagues from the Institute, everything went smoothly. Shakespeare was unhappy with the change at first, but quickly settled into his new home, especially loving the sunny window. Still in the library, where he could spend hours watching the birds in the garden. I didn't tell Peyton and Ashton about my move, but Octavia knew my new address and often came to visit on weekends. Our meetings became regular. Every Saturday, we would go to museums, historical sites, or just sit in my new library disking books and historical events. Your house is amazing, Grandpa, she said one of those days, looking at the bookshelves I'd filled with rare history. Books, It suits you so well. Thank you, honey. I handed her a cup of hot chocolate. I like it too, and I'm glad you can come here. She snuggled into the chair, pulling her knees up to her chest. My parents don't know where you live, she said suddenly. They tried to find out, but I didn't tell them. My mom even followed me once, but I went to Fellabry first, and she thought I was just studying there. I sighed, not surprised by this kind of behavior from Peyton. They've been very persistent about finding out about your job and money, Octavia continued. Especially since you stopped coming to our house. Dad is always talking about some investment opportunity he'd like to discuss with you. I'm sure he has a lot of interesting ideas, I said dryly. Octavia giggled. He even tried to bribe me to tell me about you. He said he'd buy me a new laptop if I found out where you worked and how much you made. I shook my head. She grinned, but not surprised. And what did you say? That I didn't need a new laptop? She shrugged. And that your personal life was your business. He was very unhappy. I was proud of her integrity. Despite her parents' best efforts, she had grown up to be an independent and moral person. By the way, I said, remembering the trust, I have news for you. I have set up an educational fund for you. The money will be available after your 18th birthday when you go to college. Her eyes widened in surprise. Grandfather, that's so generous, but you didn't have to. I wanted to do it, I interrupted her, so you could study what you were really interested in without financial constraints. She jumped up and hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered. It means more to me than you can imagine. A week later, a storm blew in. Peyton called me late at night, her voice shaking with anger. How could you, Daddy? She screamed as soon as I picked up the phone. Set up a trust for Octavia without our knowledge, without our consent. I sighed. Apparently, Octavia had told them about my gift. It's my money, Peyton. I'm free to use it as I see fit. We're her parents, she kept yelling. We have fair right to know about any financial decisions regarding our daughter. The money will only be available to her after her 18th birthday, and only for her education, I replied calmly. I don't see the problem with that. The problem is that you're undermining our parental authority. Her voice got even higher. Now Octavia has declared that she's going to study history in college because you're supporting her dreams? I couldn't hold back a smile, even though Peyton couldn't see it, of course. And what's wrong with that? History is a worthy field of study. It's futile, and you know it. She was silent for a second, then continued in a more controlled tone. Listen, Dad, we have to get together and talk about this. All of us together as a family. Ashton says we can find a compromise. What kind of compromise, Peyton? I asked tiredly. That I revoke the trust or that I add you as trustees. Her silence was eloquent enough. That's what I thought, I said. The answer is no. The trust will stay as it is. Octavia will get the money when she goes to college, and she can study what she wants. We're her parents, Peyton repeated, her voice turning cold. We can forbid her from seeing you. She's almost 15, I countered. She'll be an adult in 3 years. Do you really want to spend those years in conflict with her? Because believe me, if you forbid her to see me, she'll never forgive you. Peyton was silent. I knew she understood the truth of what I was saying. Octavia was too much like me, stubborn, principled, ready to fight for what she thought was right. We'll come to see you tomorrow, she said at last, the whole family. We must discuss this in person. I have no desire to see you or Ashton. You're always welcome here, Octavia, I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. But as for the rest of you, Peyton's voice cut in, sharp and impatient. You didn't even tell us where you moved to. We only found out through Octavia. There was an edge of accusation in her words, as if I'd somehow betrayed them by choosing peace. That was intentional, I replied calmly, meeting her glare. I didn't want you to know. Considering how you've treated me lately, I decided. It's better this way, safer for me." She scoffed, clearly offended. "That's absurd. We're your family, Dad." I shook my head, the words already bitter in my mouth. "No, Peyton. You and Ashton made it clear I wasn't family when you mocked me, called me a burden, and told me I wasn't welcome in your home anymore. You called me a pauper. You made it clear I was nothing more than a nuisance. The only one I still care about in your household is my granddaughter." Her face twitched, her voice trembling now. "You can't mean that. I know we've had our differences, but we can work through them. Things are different now, especially, well, now that you're more comfortable financially." I gave a slow, bitter smile. "Exactly, Peyton. Now that you think I have value again. When I was just an old man scraping by, you wanted me gone. But the moment I regained stability, suddenly I'm Dad again. Suddenly you remember we're blood. That's not family. That's convenience. That's hypocrisy." She looked like I had slapped her. "How dare you say that? We've always done our best for you." "No," I said firmly, with quiet conviction. "You haven't. And now your concern isn't about my well-being, it's about my wallet. I didn't give you my new address because I know what would come next. Another business pitch, another plea for a loan, another emergency only money could fix. I'm done with all that." There was a long silence on the other end. Then she spoke again, this time colder. "So that's it then? You're just cutting us out of your life entirely?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling both the ache and the relief of honesty. "You cut me out years ago, Peyton. I'm just making it official now. The only thing I ask, my only condition, is that you don't interfere with my relationship with Octavia." Her voice changed again, defensive, almost threatening. "What if we don't let her see you anymore?" I took a breath, steadying myself. "Then in 3 years, when she turns 18 and gains control of her trust fund and freedom, she make her own decisions and most likely she won't look back. She's bright, strong, and far more aware than you realize. If you try to keep her from me, she won't forget. She remember exactly who tried to control her." There was another pause. I could feel her uncertainty, her fear that I might be right. "You've changed, Dad," she said finally. "Ever since the money came in, you're not the same person." "No, Peyton," I said softly. "I'm the same man I've always been. The difference is, now you see me. Because now I'm useful to you. And that's the tragedy, you only see me when there's something to gain." I ended the call feeling worn but strangely free. I had expected a storm. But to my surprise, they didn't stop Octavia from visiting me. Perhaps they knew it would only push her away faster. Or maybe they thought they could use her as a bridge to my heart, or more likely, to my bank account. Either way, their strategy changed out now. Ashton was suddenly interested in history. He'd even bought books on the Founding Fathers. During one of our Saturday chats, Octavia rolled her eyes as she told me about it. "Dad started saying that maybe studying history isn't so bad after all," she said, sipping her tea. "He claims he's always liked it, just worried about my future. Do you believe him?" I asked, pouring more tea into her cup. She snorted with laughter. "Of course not. The man thought Hamilton was a president yesterday. He can't even keep Jefferson and Adams straight." We both laughed, and in that laughter, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, pure joy. She hadn't changed. They hadn't gotten to her. "But Grandpa," she said after a moment, her voice turning gentle, "I know they're manipulative. I know they've done things I don't agree with. But I still can't bring myself to hate them. They're my parents, and somewhere I think they do love me. They're just lost." I looked at her, touched by the depth of her heart. "You're right, Octavia. They love you. They just don't always know how to show it." and that's important to remember even when you're hurt by them." She nodded thoughtfully, her fingers wrapped around her teacup. "I just wish you and Mom could make peace. She's your daughter, like I'm hers. Family should be able to work things out, no matter how far apart they drift." I sighed, the weight of the years pressing down on my chest. I had asked myself that same question many times. Was there still hope for reconciliation? Could wounds that deep ever truly heal? "Sometimes," I said carefully, "some wounds cut too deep, Octavia. But I promise you this, I won't close the door completely. If your mother ever truly wants to reconcile, not for money, not for status, but out of a real desire to repair what we lost, I'll listen. I'll be there." She smiled, her whole face lighting up. "That's all I ask, Grandpa." "Thank you." That evening, after Octavia left, I sat in my library for a long time. The fire cast flickering shadows on the walls, and Shakespeare curled in my lap, purring contentedly. There was peace in the stillness and a kind of closure. I had traveled. The full arc of my life, from success to rejection, from betrayal to renewal. Once cast aside, I had found strength in solitude and love in the one person who truly understood me, my granddaughter. Whether or not I ever made peace with Peyton, I had no regrets. Octavia would go her own way, and I would support her every step. Through her, the thread of our family connection might survive fragile, but not broken, because history, as I knew all too well, teaches that even the deepest wounds may heal in time. And as a historian, I couldn't help but hope that this lesson would prove true for my own family as well. The Hamilton Letters project was completed on time. The Institute was planning a grand exhibition that would be a sensation in academic circles. My name was first on the list of experts working on the collection, a kind of rehabilitation after 20 years of professional neglect. I was ready for a new chapter of my life with a new home, a secure future, and a granddaughter who carried my passion for history. The relationship with my daughter remained fractured, but I had learned to accept it as part of my own story. Complex, imperfect, but still mine. And at the end of the day, sitting in my library with a book in my hands and a cat on my lap, I could honestly say that despite all the hardships and losses, I had lived life by my own rules and stayed true to myself. And that in the end was more important than anything else.